to the first episode of Traveling Gypsy.
Glad you're here.
And Gypsy just left, but that's one of the reasons why we call ourselves Traveling Gypsies, because that is the name of our cat. It's also, by our choice, the name of our RV, because it's also what we've become. We're gypsies. We live here, but we move it wherever we want, and currently we won't tell you where we are, but you will know later when the next video comes out. Now, these videos are going to be semi-occasional, which means hopefully about once a month, and our hope is that it will allow you to join into our journey. Mm-hmm. And hopefully this will be the worst video that we do, because we're both still learning how, and I'm having to relearn how to edit and record and all that stuff, and this has taken probably 12 takes just to do this, if this is the last one. Now, the goal here is to share with you some of our experiences and our thoughts and our adventures, and therefore to keep you, grandchildren, children, friends, other family members, along with us as to where we've been and where we're going. For those choosing to join us on our video, let's try that one more time.
One more time.
Take 3 on this one. For those choosing to join us on our journey through these videos, our hope is that when they come out approximately once a month, they will be accompanied by phone calls, text messages, video calls with the children, with our grandchildren, and with our friends, so that we talk about not only what we're doing, but also what you're doing. You see, we already kind of miss you, and we would like to have communication with you, and we're using YouTube to do that. So, let's get on with this first part of our adventure. Well, we've been parked here for a year, a little over, and this is the last time we're pulling out, because from this point the journey begins. As a part of that beginning, before we even hooked up and pulled out, we said goodbye to some special friends: Doreen and Ken, John and Sue, Deb and Steve, Peg and Gail, and pictured here, Deb and Rick. Now, if we've forgotten someone, and I'm sure we have, we're certainly sorry. After all, we are old. We're retired. Our first stops in preparation was in local campgrounds. When we moved in, Gypsy met a new friend, a female cardinal. They entertained each other for hours as we got the RV ready to leave. Our first major stop once we left was Chestnut Ridge Campground in Hubbard, Ohio. There we were excited to be met with long-term friends, the Daubersteins. Our first destination was Goshen, Indiana, for the Alliance Rally. Bill Martin, pictured here, was actually the reason why we bought an Alliance, or at least one of the important reasons, and we thought we'd also introduce you to the brothers, the Brady brothers, who actually started the company. Robin certainly enjoyed her time during the raffles, even though we didn't win anything at all. But one of the highlights of the week was having dinner with Phil, Vanessa, Oliver, and Peter in Goshen as we met with them and their friends who were hosting us for that night. A bucket list for us while we were in Goshen was to visit the RV and Motorhome Museum. However, in the parking lot, we ran into several antique cars and their owners. They are pretty impressive. On some, you can read the make and the model of the car, as well as the year model.
Eric, Phil, Lauren, and Jesse will remember our first family camper, a Starcraft pop-up. Here's a 1916 version of the tent camper. I certainly believe ours was a bit more comfortable. We actually had air conditioning and much more comfortable beds and windows and etc. Now, one of the reasons we wanted to see this museum is because we have been following the Keep Your Daydream YouTube channel. During one of their seasons, Mark and Trish bought a 1984 Bluebird Wander Lodge, a luxury motor coach of its day. It had been redecorated by the previous owners in a Route 66 theme, that historic route from Chicago, Illinois to Santa Monica, California. Traveling this route is something we hope to do in later trips. Through their informative and entertaining videos, Mark and Trish and family have greatly helped us get on the road. To see their Route 66 episodes, you can find them on YouTube, Season 10, at Keep Your Daydream. Early in their Route 66 journey, the Leaches picked up this bobble-headed travel companion they named Gary. That's the cutout you see our faces in. Charlie is their golden retriever who travels with them. From Indiana, we headed back toward Pennsylvania, at least as far as Houston Woods, a campground close to where we lived in Englewood, Ohio. This is the same site we stayed at last year. We were able to bike some of the trails around the park, which we enjoyed very much. On one of these rides, we stumbled upon a raptors exhibit demonstration. First was a red-tailed hawk. Houston Woods is a recognized raptor rehab, releasing all back to the wild that can be released. If, like these guys, they are unable to be released, then they are housed and cared for the rest of their life. Later, the ranger brought out a great horned owl. He explained that those are not actually horns, but are feathers on her ears, making it look like horns. He explained that because circles, like the shape of her head without the horns, are not commonly found in nature, the horns helped give her a more jagged appearance and helped her hide from her predators. Many of you remember my love for having parrots for years. While we were at Houston Woods, we were able to visit with the foxes, Dick, Jerry, Anna, Amy, and her son, our selfie photographer, Isaiah. It was great to see these wonderful friends.
We next headed south to Fort Boonesborough in Kentucky, and we celebrated their 60th birthday party. However, Boonesborough, Kentucky is much older than 60 years, we found out. It was founded in 1775 by an American pioneer and frontiersman as one of the first English settlements west of the Appalachian Mountains. Can anyone find the name of this pioneer? Stories are told, whether they're true or not, that he was famous for wearing a raccoon skin with tail hat. Another hint might be found in the first 6 letters of the name of the city in Kentucky founded by him. Who was he? Let us know in the comments. While we were there celebrating their birthday party, they had a petting zoo. And of course, I had to go to that. So we saw many small animals that they had there. So that was kind of fun. Also, I won a gift in their birthday party. So that's always fun to win something free. Now, we've always heard about Buc-ee's from several sources, and we finally found one. So if you're ever near a Buc-ee's, it's worth a stop. You've got to try their brisket, whether you do the sliced or chopped. They're excellent. In fact, they're so good that people go through there for lunch or dinner, and then they have to go out to their cars, trucks, or RVs like us, because there's no tables, either inside, outside, anywhere. So they're that good that people go and sit in their cars to eat. Another great time that we had was going to visit with Ray and Andrea Coates and their family. They came out to the campground one afternoon and we had dinner together. And then later, another day, we went out to their house. It's a beautiful home. We had lunch on their patio overlooking the golf course. Beautiful home, beautiful area. Thank you so much, Ray and Andrea. It was so much fun. Who we missed was Angie and Chris. They were busy at the time and we couldn't visit. So sorry about that. Next time we'll get to you.
Leaving Boonesboro, we continued south to Chattanooga, Tennessee, where we stayed at the Rocky Mountain Caverns and Campground. On travel days like that, Gypsy becomes very needy for attention. For much of the travel day, she'll sit on the truck console between us. However, often she'll want to be held. Funny, she's not much of a lap cat, except for travel days. We visited Chattanooga because my parents came from the Chattanooga area, which was where they grew up. This was before they moved to Arkansas, where I was born. 1825 Fowl Street was the home of my mother's first cousin, Mildred. This is where we spent every evening and night when we visited. Next door was Aunt Grace's house, which was my mother's aunt, married to my mother's father's brother. My mother was a Sturdivant. One of the great joys of this part of our travels and visiting Chattanooga was being able to spend some time with Nancy Sturdivant and sharing a wonderful barbecue dinner with her. Nancy's husband was Glenn. His family called him by his first and middle names, Glenn Olin. Glenn's father was my grandfather's brother, so Glenn was my mother's first cousin. Now, how was Glenn related to me? Well, as I understand it, since he was my mother's first cousin, he would be my first cousin once removed. Glenn's daughter, Amy, who is also a good friend of mine, would be my second cousin. The little green and white house in the center was my grandparents on my dad's side when I was a kid. The big gray house was just an empty lot back then. Behind and beside my grandparents' house was this huge rock that I used to play on when we'd visit. The rock hasn't changed a bit, except as I've gotten older and bigger, it's gotten smaller. One of the things I would do whenever I visited my grandmother was to ride the incline, the world's steepest train. Here's the old car like I would ride. Now's the new one like Robin or Grammy and I rode while we were there. Grammy, going down into the incline, you walk down all the steps when you're at the base. You walk up them when you're at the top. We enjoyed our trip up, and you see lots of sights of the Chattanooga and surrounding areas as we do that. In fact, here is Chattanooga from the very top. It's on the very left. That's the city. And then I'm panning to the right so you can see everything that we could see from the very top of the incline. What's coming up at the very end of this little clip is a house that I would say would be one of my favorite, and it's because of the view from right there. The incline is actually run by that little engine right in the front, and the reason they can do that is because whenever there's a car at the top, there's also a car at the bottom. So the weight of the car going down helps the car coming up, and so it doesn't take much of an engine to do it. It's quite a feat of engineering. It's a great trip up the mountain. We would visit my grandmother and grandfather 2-3 times a year, and all the way from Arkansas to Chattanooga, I would see these signs that say "See Rock City." Sometimes they were painted on birdhouses like this, sometimes they were on barns, but I never got to go as a child. Finally, we got to go to Rock City. What is Rock City? Well, Rock City was the dream of Frida and Garnett Carter in the early 1930s. They wanted to develop a garden on their property that would attract folks to the top of Lookout Mountain. Their dream involved building this attraction around the towering rocks coming directly out of the mountain, rocks that look like tall buildings with a city, streets and valleys and alleys in between. Rock City has been growing strong ever since. One of our favorite parts of Rock City was called Fat Man Squeeze. Let's see how fast Grammy and I can get through that one. And at the top, you get your reward for all of that squeezing and climbing and walking. You get Lover's Leap, and from there they say that you can see 7 states. Like Rock City, Ruby Falls was an attraction that I had seen advertised again and again for my trips back and forth between Arkansas and Tennessee, but I had never been there. Ruby Falls was accidentally discovered by Leo Lambert in 1928 deep within Lookout Mountain in Chattanooga. Leo named the waterfalls and the cave after his lovely wife Ruby. Here's an example of the passageway that Lambert had back in 1928, 2.5 to 3 feet tall most of the way through. However, we saw several stalactites and stalagmites, like these steak and potatoes, named much later than Leo, of course, and another one named an elephant's foot. Now you tell me which one is a stalactite and which one is a stalagmite. At the end of the tour, you finally arrive at Ruby Falls. Ruby Falls is 145 feet tall, all underground, and it is quite impressive once you get there. Robin and I concluded our visit in Chattanooga with Ruby Falls, and from there we had a couple of travel days taking us further west to our combined home state of Arkansas. We saw several things there, and here Gypsy is serving as my navigator, getting us to Arkansas. While in Kensett, we rode our bicycles through my childhood neighborhood. This is my house as a child when I was growing up. Very small neighborhood, actually, 3 houses of importance. This one, mine. It's funny, it's much smaller than I remember it being. But just two houses down from where I grew up was my grandmother's house. The family all called her Other Mama. She died when I was in kindergarten. Across the street from her house is my aunt's house, my mother's sister. Everyone in the family and most everyone in the neighborhood called her sister. She was the youngest baby of the family. We also rode by the church that I grew up in, First Baptist Church of Kensett. While we were there, we had dinner several evenings with my favorite biological niece. I say that it was my favorite because she is my only biological niece. You'll meet her in a moment, but here is Judy on the left, my cousin Judy, and her sister, my cousin also, Patty, and their older sister, Joanne. Lisa is the one sitting in the chair. That is her younger son, Nathan, sitting next to Grammy or Robin, and sitting to Robin's left, and he'll be in the screen just a moment, is Lisa's oldest son, Nicholas. Nicholas just graduated from high school. Appearing in the picture now will be Lisa's husband, Matt. He gave us 2 fingers. I told him he had to keep up both fingers because this was a family video, which he did. While we were at the party, we also enjoyed spending some time with Pat, who is Joanne's husband on the left, Orrin, who is Judy's husband on the between the two, Judy again on the right. A great evening catching up with these few cousins at least that were able to come.
We made our way to my parents' farm in northern Arkansas one day. It's now owned by the National Park Service, but that didn't stop us from stopping by to refresh our memories of this beloved home. The barn you see is where the property started. Beyond that, to the right, is a pond which you really can't see anymore. My brother Bruce almost fell through the ice on that pond one winter. I never wanted to ice skate again after that.
Breaking into somebody's house that we don't know.
There's no sign that says keep out. As you traveled up the road when I was younger, I couldn't wait to see any changes from the visit to the next. It was the same for this trip. The excitement increased as we continued up the road. The house was just a small white framed home when it was purchased. It slowly changed over the years and is the beautiful home you see now. I loved my time at the farm. When my parents lived there, they kept the grounds mowed so you could see the beautiful Buffalo National River when sitting on one of the decks. No longer can you do this. The lone tree is where we spread our parents' ashes. We said our goodbyes to our parents and the farm in 2009, but we all sneak back when we can to get one more look at this special place in our hearts. Afterwards, we went to the Black Sheep restaurant in Yellville. We met Randa Harris, my first cousin, and Vicki Harris for a delicious lunch.
Let's look at a map of Arkansas. We've been up where the heart is, the Buffalo River, where the farm is located, but we're moving to Little Rock, North Little Rock. There's a body of water that separates Little Rock from North Little Rock. What is that body of water? Look it up and let us know in the comments, or send us a text message, whichever, to let us know what body of water we're moving to. This is where we're located, right on the banks of this body of water, and Gypsy specifically loved it here. There was so much going on. There was lots of barge traffic. Here's a relatively short barge and its tugboats, but not all the barges were that short. Here's a much longer one and its tug pushing it upriver. Not all the traffic was barge related necessarily. They were working on I-30 just down from where we were camped, and so we saw this little tug working quite a bit, and not all the traffic was barge or boats. They were birds, and Gypsy specifically loved these. While we were visiting Little Rock, we got to reconnect several evenings with this young man, a youth from our first church together, Lakeshore Drive Baptist Church, back in its day. We also reconnected with Linda Martin, who was not a youth, but her younger brother Jeff was when we were there. Linda was still in Little Rock, works at University of Arkansas at Little Rock. And we also reconnected with very dear friends from Ouachita Baptist University, Rich and Dottie Brown. With this couple, we were able to enjoy a wonderful meal out, as well as a little bit of a splurge with some ice cream. It was so good to see them all. Let's take a trip across that as yet unnamed river from our campground. We rode our bikes across here several times. This is a part of a beautiful river trail. I've fast forwarded the video for the sake of time. As you approach the Little Rock side of the river, a unique building comes into view. This is the Bill Clinton Presidential Library. Clinton was the only president to date from Arkansas. Some folks think that the architecture of this building is ugly. However, the design is to look like a bridge. This is because Clinton was president from 1993 to 2001. Therefore, the building is to represent a bridge into a new century and into the future of the country. As has been told to us, regardless of whether you are a Democrat or a Republican or independent or something else, if you get a chance to visit a presidential library, take it. The tour is fabulous. Two of the things that interested me is a replica of the Oval Office when Clinton was president. Also, a replica of a table setting at a state dinner. I wouldn't even know where to start with all of the plates, the glasses, and the silverware.
I grew up in Little Rock, Arkansas, in a neighborhood called Broadmoor. This was the second house we lived in when I was a child. Grandpa and I moved into this house once my parents retired and moved to the farm and lived there for 3 years. The new owners have added on to the house, so it looks a little different now. My childhood friend who lived in Broadmoor was Terry Morrow Gibbons. I was able to visit with Terry along with her sister Booty one day. It was like old times again. I also visited with my high school buddy, Carol Stevens Daves. We always have a good time remembering our high school days together.
Our final stop in Arkansas on this journey was just up that unnamed river from Little Rock to Ozark, Arkansas. There we got to enjoy a dinner at a restaurant and winery named Whitaker that we have not been to in over 40 years. We also got to spend a wonderful evening with Jim and Becca Warnick, who are friends of Robin's from college, and we enjoyed catching up with them as well. And this part of our journey took us through the 4th of July. So we celebrated that at Ozark as well with these fireworks and also with free hot dogs given out to all the campers from one of our neighbors. Thank you for joining us on this part of our journey of traveling Gypsy. If you would like to join us in subsequent videos, which I promise should be better than this one, then I invite you to go back to the YouTube channel where you found this, click the subscribe button. After that, a notification button will show up, and if you click that one as well, then you will get notified when we post our next video. Thank you and happy trails.